Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 205 of TowerGate, Wednesday, September 27, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. And what is Wednesday? Garbage night. That's right, for me it's garbage night. Got to remember to get the trash out. Alrighty, the most popular story today, same story that was the most popular story yesterday, the story everyone is still talking about, cannot let go of. The NFL and Trump's comments about firing the son of a bitches who disrespect the flag. Still the hottest topic of the day. And now today, they're all asking the questions, what should we do? What is there to do? Should Trump have a meeting with NFL owners and some players and sit around in the Oval Office, maybe light some candles and join hands and sing Kumbaya? No! What a stupid idea. There's nothing to be done. It's too late. The train has left the station and it's steaming down the track, and you ain't going to stop this runaway locomotive. No way. Oh, it's going to get solved, and I'm going to tell you how it's going to get solved and why it's going to be solved. Believe me, friends, it's all about the money. It's all about the money. And who are the major players here in the money game? Well, number one, of course, it's the players who are multi-millionaires as a result of that game. You also have another group, the billionaire owners. They want to keep making lots of money just like the players. Then, of course, you have the advertisers. That's right, the people who advertise their products during NFL games, and they pay primo rates to advertise during a football game, especially during the championship games and especially the Super Bowl. Big money with these big corporations. You also have another group that everyone's forgetting about. Let me remind you, it's the taxpayers. Yes, because they're the ones who, for the most part, shoulder more than 50% on average of the cost of these stadiums. That's right, taxpayer dollars. In these cities, I know it happened right here in Cincinnati. The taxpayers divvied out about, I believe it was 64% of the cost to build Mr. Brown a new stadium so that he can continue to rake in billions of dollars, as well as all those players making millions, advertisers, and let's not forget the TV networks. Have you wondered why you haven't heard from the president of ABC, NBC, or CBS, or any of the rest? Now you know they're dying to come out and hit Trump, but just about the time that they start to think about it, they go, oh, and then they realize what's going to happen when the advertisers hear my statement. Uh-oh, yes, that's right, you're going to get a phone call. We're going to be talking more about that here in a little while, but trust me, folks, the money is going to take care of it, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's got to play itself out now that this ball has been put into play. Oh, it's going to get played out, and the people are not going to like how it turns out. Mr. Goodell, the president, I'm telling you, he is either going to do one of two things. He is going to come out and either make it clear what the league's policy is, and it is a league policy that players must stand and respect the flag and the playing of the national anthem. It's in their contract with the NFL. I believe it's section 301 in the NFL rules clause, which all owners and players are signed up to. So Mr. Goodell, the head of the NFL, is either going to come out in a red-faced ceremony in front of a podium and apologize to the fans and the viewers. Then he's going to make it clear what the policy is, which is that you are an NFL player, you will stand and respect the flag and the national anthem. He will either do that or he will be forced out. That is what is going to happen. And I'll be telling you why as we move forward in today's TowerGate video, because there's other things to report which will back up my point. But the fact of the matter is, the idea that this thing can now be smoothed over, no way. No way. You can't set something like this into motion and then just expect some words are going to solve it. Some meetings are going to solve it. No, 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 no. No, they've gone too far. What should have happened on the very first time that Colin Kaepernick sat there on the sidelines and kneeled down with the cameras closing in on his socks, which showed pigs dressed as policemen on his socks, and then he came out and made a statement afterwards praising Fidel Castro. At that point, Mr. Goodell should have called Kaepernick along with the coach and the owner into his office. He should have opened up that book and showed them, here's the rule that you're all signed up to. You can't do what you did. It's $1 million fine. Right now, Mr. Kaepernick, if you want to play in the NFL, you've got two choices. Number one, go make a public press statement apologizing to the fans for what you did, apologizing to the police, the military, and all those you offended. Pay your $1 million fine, and you can remain in the NFL. Otherwise, lifetime ban. Then he should have sent a letter to all the owners and all the players reminding them of the rule, of the clause, and the legal agreement they have with the NFL. And he should have told them, you do this and it's a lifetime ban, period. And that would have stopped it, and that's what he should have done. But he didn't, because he's a whack job, left coast, liberal wingnut. And he thought he would play to his liberal base. He violated his very own rules. And he set this thing in motion. Keep in mind, Colin Kaepernick is at best, average quarterback who played and had a mediocre season last year for a pretty bad team, the San Francisco 49ers. And so they offered him a $900,000 contract to be a backup. Well, he didn't think that was enough money to stand on the sidelines and hold a clipboard. He thought that someone might want him to be a starter. No one wants Colin Kaepernick as a starter. He doesn't have the stuff to be a starter. He's a backup quarterback, period. But now, since he refused that contract and nobody wanted his cancerous presence around their locker room, no one offered him a contract. So now, it's crazy to think, but all this started because of him, and he's not even a player in the NFL right now. He has no contract. He's not playing in the NFL. Nor will he ever. After this, he is done. He is done. And our third-string quarterback broke his thumb in preseason, and we are actually looking for a new third-string quarterback. If Mike Brown here in Cincinnati were to even slightly entertain the idea that he were even going to give an interview to Colin Kaepernick or a workout, I promise you this city would go nuts. You would have season ticket holders canceling tickets, people burning their Bengals gear. There would be sounding off on all the talk shows. It would be a massacre. And Mr. Brown knows that, as does Coach Lewis and most of the Bengal players, I'm sure. They understand it very, very well. Colin Kaepernick is a cancer. He is a cancer. He will divide your team, just as he has divided the NFL. And this is exactly what you're going to see, because there's a lot of players who don't want to upset their teammates. And so what they're doing is essentially being silent. But they're not going to be silent for long, because eventually some of these guys are going to stand up and speak out. Some already have. Drew Brees came out and made a statement and said he thinks they should stand. We had the Pittsburgh player, Villanueva, who came out all by himself and stood up. A former Army Ranger, by the way. And we've had other players come out as well. We've had one owner come out and say that if this thing doesn't get settled in the right way, he's going to sell the damn team. He's sick of it. I'm telling you, folks, this thing has been set in motion. There's nothing they can do to save this thing. It's going to have to play itself out. Oh, and it's going to. And I'm telling you, this is going to be major. You talk about the type of money we're talking about here is incredible. We're talking about billions of dollars of losses, and the sport may never, ever recover. What a shame. What a damn shame. More about that later in the video. Next, another never Trumper, New World Order type never Trumper is leaving Congress. Make that number 6. who's decided he will step down and not stand for re-election. Senator Bob Corker has decided he's not going to stay in the game. No. He's got some attractive lobbying efforts out there. He knows his goose is cooked. He's read the polls. Being an anti-Trumper is not a good position to be in. If you're a Republican right now, the base is pretty hot. They're pretty uptight. And believe me, he read the tea leaves and the polls and the op research that he pays a lot of money for, and he knows his goose is cooked. He's getting out before he gets embarrassed. So make Senator Bob Corker number 6, who will not stand for re-election. God willing, a real, true conservative will occupy that seat in Tennessee. Outstanding. When Trump said he was going to drain the swamp, he meant it. I had no idea how he was going to do it, but apparently this is how he's going to do it. Whatever it takes. Goodbye, Bob Corker. Goodbye, Senator Corker. Well, the demonic Teletubby Kim Jong-un is now stating that Trump has declared war over Twitter. Well, first of all, Mr. Teletubby, the United States has been in a state of war with North Korea since they signed the armistice in 1952. A state of war has existed since then. There's never been an official end to that war. It's been a ceasefire since 1952, when Eisenhower negotiated the armistice before taking office, when he was still president-elect. And it should also be noted for the demonic Teletubby that the president cannot declare war. The president goes to the Congress and asks for a declaration of war, and once he gets the declaration of war, Congress actually does the declaration of war, and then the president pursues the war. That's how it works here in the United States, Mr. Teletubby. Okay, we should mention this too as well. The United States is still conducting exercises, military exercises, right on the North Korean border, and I can tell you from previous experience with my friends who are fighter pilots back during the Cold War that they routinely fly over those perimeters into the hostile country's airspace just to tweak them. They'll fly about 5 miles in, wait till they get chased out, and they'll take off. They do it all the time, and I can assure you that they are flying in and out of the airspace of North Korea on a pretty regular basis. They've really stepped up them exercises. And what are they doing? Well, obviously, they're trying to get Kim Jong-un, the demonic Teletubby, to respond by firing at one of those planes. They're trying to get him to fire at one of those planes, because once he does fire on a U.S. military aircraft, there you have the casus belli. That will be the reason that we can launch the war on North Korea, which I don't believe that we really want to do. That's one idea. It could be they are trying to lure him into making a bad move, but it's probably more to put political pressure on him than anything. And I don't know that that would start a full-scale war, but they would certainly return fire on whatever fired on them, whether it was an anti-aircraft site, a plane, a ship, whatever it was. Wherever the fire came from would certainly get a response by that aircraft that was fired on. But it just shows you that they are really putting the pressure on. We will have to follow that and see how that turns out. Again, as I've said before, the best solution to this problem is to immediately make sure that South Korea and Japan are armed with their own nukes. You hate to see 2 more nuclear powers, but they have to be able to defend themselves, and that's probably the best solution to the problem. It also would get China to really apply the pressure, because the last thing China wants is Japan and South Korea with nukes. That's the last thing they want. So it would put a lot of pressure on China. It would certainly counter Kim Jong-un, and we could deliver nukes to Japan and South Korea in a matter of hours. We have them all over Europe. We have them, well, we pulled the ones we had out of Turkey. They're back in Germany now, but we can certainly get them weapons there. We absolutely can, and that's exactly what we should do while we continue to develop our anti-ballistic missile capabilities. That is exactly what we should be doing, and my guess is we probably are doing some of that. Well, the House Intel Committee will be holding hearings tomorrow, Thursday. They will be holding hearings relating to the document production of the dossier. No witnesses have been named who would appear if there were witnesses. Sessions and Wray, of course, have been subpoenaed, but they have not stated whether or not they will show for those subpoenas. And I should say that Devin Nunes has now gone back to pretty much heading that committee. He's the one that's talking about he's the one that sent the subpoenas, and he's the one that's pretty much back to running the show there after he had stepped back earlier. He seems to be back in command of that House Intel Committee. And so he's not giving up. Neither is Mr. Grassley. Neither, as far as I can tell, is Trey Gowdy. He wants Comey back. But on the Senate side, in the Judiciary Committee and in the Intelligence Committee in the House, they're still focused very much on the dossier. And Mr. Nunes has two really important questions, the ones we've been talking about here on TowerGate, that he wants an answer to. Number one, what was the FBI's role in the production of the dossier? What was the FBI's role in the production of the dossier? And they really don't want to answer that question for some reason. What do you think it is? Number two, he wants to know if the dossier was used to obtain the warrants used for surveillance on Trump's team. That's another question they really do not want to answer. It's starting to heat up now, folks. The pressure is building and building. This is a story I want to tell you now a little bit about. Not so much a story, but just something I've been stumbling onto. I've seen it now on four or five different sites that I go to and look at, but no one's really producing a source. So I'm hesitant to state it as an actual factual piece of news, but I'll just give this to you just so you know it's out there floating around. It's pretty much unsourced, but it is being alleged on several sites. And again, the way this works on the internet is somebody posts a story and 3, 4, 5, 6 other people pick it up and they post it too. And sometimes it's a link to the original story, or someone writes their own original take on the original story. And so it gets kind of difficult to sniff these things out. But I like to find sources, hard, reliable sources, more than one, before I tell you something is a fact. So I'll just tell you that this is not a fact. It's just something that I keep stumbling onto that's quite interesting, that needs more investigation, shall we say. And it's something I've stumbled onto a few times, and that is this question: did Senator Magoo continue to receive information from Christopher Steele after the initial contact? What I mean by that, and what this story is alleging, is that once Senator Magoo, of course, he meets the British former Russian spy, or actually he was a diplomat, an ambassador to Russia, who was a British ambassador to Russia. McCain and his right-hand man and a few other people he hangs with was at a conference in Quebec. They met this gentleman. He told McCain apparently about the dossier. McCain was very interested, and so he sent his right-hand man over to London to meet with Christopher Steele and get the dossier. Now, we've been led to believe up to this point, and this has all been verified. Even Senator Magoo has admitted that this is exactly what he did. He sent his man there to get the dossier. His man brought it back, gave it to Senator Magoo, and then Senator Magoo went to Comey and presented it to him personally. Now, we've been led to believe at this point that that was the end of McCain's involvement with the dossier. He hand-delivered it to Comey, and that was pretty much the end. But this story that I keep stumbling onto is suggesting that in the course of that conversation, McCain's right-hand man told Christopher Steele that they would like to be kept abreast of any further developments, and that if he had any new information, that he could contact McCain's right-hand man, who would then pass the word to Senator Magoo. So the question is, did Senator Magoo continue to have some sort of contacts, relations, or exchanges of information with Christopher Steele after the initial contact when he gained access to the dossier? Maybe this is why Christopher Steele's lawyers are suggesting that maybe it was Magoo who provided this dossier. We know he provided it to Harry Reid and a couple other people on the Senate Intelligence Committee, a couple other people in Congress. The question is, did he provide it to Buzzfeed? That's the question that's being asked in the lawsuit, because Christopher Steele's, Mr. Gubarev's attorneys want to know who's going to pay him. Someone's going to pay Mr. Gubarev, whether it's Magoo, whether it's GPS Fusion, Buzzfeed. Someone is going to pay Mr. Gubarev. And now it appears that we have two other people, Carter Page and this Russian bank, Alpha Bank. They also are going to get paid by whoever published or released that dossier to BuzzFeed. Now, BuzzFeed published it, so they're definitely going to be paying up. But who leaked it to BuzzFeed is also going to be in trouble. Christopher Steele is, of course, denying that he was the one who furnished BuzzFeed with the dossier or gave them permission to publish or anything else. So anyway, that's just a story I keep popping up on, and we'll find out. We really need Senator Magoo before he keels over, which I understand will probably be within the next no more than 1 year. He's got less than a year to live. His tumor treatments are not going very well. It's just too late. They got to him too late. So Magoo is not going to be around very much longer. We need to get Magoo, preferably on a lie detector machine, because he'll lie. We need to get him on a lie detector, maybe even waterboard him, and we need to get the truth out of Senator Magoo before he kicks the bucket and takes all his secrets to the grave with him. Because once Magoo kicks the bucket, then everybody will dump on Magoo. He's dead. You can't sue a dead man, can you? Mr. Gubarev can't collect damages from a dead man, can he? And GPS Fusion and Christopher Steele and the rest, that's probably their legal plan, is to wait out John McCain for him to push up daisies. Because once John McCain's pushing up daisies, he can't hire a lawyer and defend himself. And you can't sue a dead man, can you? Maybe. He'll have an estate. I guess you could sue his estate. Oh my goodness. Senator Magoo needs to be placed under oath and probably on a lie detector. And he knows a lot more than he's saying. Let's just put it that way. Restaurants and bars all across America turning off the NFL. Again, just more proof of what I'm telling you. That's why this thing is going to come to a head very quickly. If some people think this NFL story is going to play out for weeks and weeks, no. This thing, believe me, is going to get nipped in the bud quick. And it will have nothing to do with candle lighting, hand holding, or singing of songs, or tears, or back rubs, or belly rubs, or back pats, or anything else. No. Money. The money is going to talk, and it's going to talk loud. Just watch and see. And it's going to talk very quickly. The United Nations now wants Canada to apologize for slavery and pay reparations for that slavery. That's fantastic. In case you haven't been keeping up, Mr. Trudeau is not very popular in Canada. His approval ratings are going down. I mean, the guy was never qualified for president anyway, and the Canadians just can't stand this guy. I don't know how he got elected. Well, actually, I do know how he got elected. The field was very weak, and they're very left-leaning in Canada. But they're finding out, just like the folks in France are finding out about the loser they elected, that this guy's a chump and a fraud. Not only that, we should point out to those nuts at the UN that it was the European financiers of banking and commerce, of agriculture and trade, of manufacturing, who funded the original slavery in the States and in Canada. It was those big money Brits and Europeans who were bankrolling, setting up the slave trade in America and Canada. In all the Americas, as a matter of fact. And if you want to go back to the 1400s, when the Americas were really discovered, you'll find that it was Europeans again who set up their slave trades. The goal of the Europeans to blame North America, South America, or Canada for the slave trade and ask us to pay reparations and apologize when it was their financiers and mercantilists who set up the damn system. We were colonies. We were British slaves, British subjects. We had no say. It was the Europeans who set it up. And now they... I wonder... I can't wait to hear Trudeau's response. I can't wait to hear Trudeau's response. That's going to be good. We'll be sure and cover that. Man, oh man, I bet he's peeing his pants right now. Well, folks, it looks like Roy Moore did defeat Luther Strange, and he beat him pretty well by about 15, 16 points. So it wasn't really even that close. So the fact that Trump went there and campaigned for him didn't help him very much. But it looks like Roy Moore won. Hopefully he'll defeat the Democrat there. I have no particular love for either of those guys, really. I mean, they're, you know, to me, they're like standard politicians. But as long as they support the Trump agenda, I'll live with them. Now, we know that Luther Strange would support the Trump agenda. We'll see if Roy Moore will. Now, we know Roy Moore is a real hardcore sort of neocon Christian conservative. And, you know, he's not been part of the establishment. He's considered pretty much anti-establishment. So, hey, you know, I could live with either of them if they'll support the agenda. I have no personal love for either of them. Just get on board. Get on board. Repeal and replace Obamacare. Fix that tax system. Build that infrastructure. And by the way, story we'll get into in just a minute, they're building the wall. Obamacare repeal number 3 dies in the Senate. Twitch thinks he won. Well, Twitch may feel a personal victory here, but I can assure you that he's taking a lot of people in the swamp down with him, so more power to him. Now, Lindsey Graham, on the other hand, is saying, no, the bill's not dead yet. And, of course, I think that they're still behind the scenes working on Joe Manchin, the Democrat from West Virginia, the fairly conservative Democrat who is hated by the progressives, and the progressives are getting a candidate that they're going to challenge him with, which probably they wouldn't win with the progressive anyway, but he also isn't very well liked by the corporate Democrat, so he's just not very well liked there. He is kind of conservative for a Democrat. He's a common sense Democrat is what he is. I don't hate Joe Manchin. I don't love Joe Manchin, but he's not atypical. He doesn't walk the in lockstep with the party, and that's why they're not really liking him so much, because he's kind of his own man, I guess you would say. But we know that there's behind the scenes they are working him to see if he will switch parties, and he came out today and made a statement, essentially not really supporting Trump per se, but he did come out and make a statement on the NFL thing, and he said that the players should stand and respect the flag and the anthem. So the fact that he didn't come out and pile on Trump with the rest of the left tells you that he's definitely testing the waters. And I believe, and I don't know if his vote is enough, because if you have Paul, Cruz, possibly Mike Lee, and then the two whack job female senators, we have Murkowski and what's her name up in Maine, that's just too many votes. Manchin couldn't make up that difference. You would need to get at least two of those others to turn. Two of those others and Manchin. You could probably get Cruz or Lee, one of the two, maybe both. You might even get Rand Paul if you can throw him the right bone. The two women, you can write them off. They just are not going to go into it. But if you could get two of those guys and bring in Manchin, and he were to vote for it, and I understand he supports it. The governor is certainly working on him. I would be very surprised if Trump didn't give him a phone call. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying it's something to watch. As far as this bill being killed or whatever, look, we all have talked about many times what's going to happen in 2018, and I can tell you that maybe the game now is that maybe the Democrats think that the Republicans are going to pay the price for the disastrous failings of Obamacare. Maybe the Republicans think the Democrats are still on the hook for it, but I got news for them. They're both on the hook for it. They're both going to pay a high price. Establishment, Republicans, and Democrats are going to pay the price, heavy price, for the disaster that is going to be Obamacare. I'm telling you, the first quarter, when tax time comes, And as we get into the 2018, when a lot of these big fines and fees kick in, and then when the insurance companies have to be bailed out again, you think that Trump's going to do that? I'm telling you, Trump has got them. He's got them by the scrotum. He has them by the scrotum. Let's see. Oh, video was released today showing the beginning stages of the border wall. They're now building some replicas. The 6 companies that submitted designs are now each building sections so that they can actually see how it works and what it looks like. So the beginning of the wall, building the wall, has begun. Twitch. Hey, Saudi Arabia is now going to allow women to drive. What do you think brought that on? Do you think the liberal feminist will give any praise to President Trump for getting that done? Was it the Rotten Reverend? She got 25% of her campaign was funded by Saudi princes and kings, and Saudi billionaires, and Saudi oil men, the Saudi family, the House of Saud. 25% of Clinton's campaign was funded by them. What did she get in return? A promise that they would let women drive? Nothing. She asked for nothing but money, and she got all that. But Trump didn't get a dime from him. But somehow, he's now got them to switch their position. They're going to let women learn how to drive. Change is coming to the Saudi oil kingdom. You can bet on that. Back to this story again, which I told you I'd give you more information on to prove my point. DirecTV is now being forced to offer refunds to NFL boycotters. In the last few days, DirecTV has seen thousands and thousands of people canceling their DirecTV because the only reason many people had it was to watch the NFL games. Now they have no need because they're not going to watch any NFL games, so they want their money back. They want to cancel. And so what DirecTV is doing to try to hold on to their customers is that they're offering refunds. It's going to cost DirecTV a lot of money. And you know what? The CEO of DirecTV, he's going to be on the horn to Mr. Goodell. He's going to say, Roger, I need you to come in. We need to talk. 60%, 69% of viewers watch less NFL because of political stunts. These numbers are very much in line with the numbers we've been seeing. Of course, we have the mad Maxine Waters once Trump impeached over comments on NFL kneelers. Oh my goodness. She just, again, you don't really have to comment on mad Maxine Waters. Just say what she said. It's crazy enough on its own. Needs no help. Needs no support. Denver Broncos, Von Miller, one of their star players, and a great player, by the way. Denver Broncos, Von Miller, has just lost his endorsement for a local car dealership. A local car dealer named Phil Long, who owns several dealerships, has been using Von Miller to sell cars. Not anymore. His lucrative deal with Phil Long dealerships has been canceled. The Rotten Reverend calls Trump's comments on kneelers racist, and she sides with Kaepernick. The Rotten Reverend siding with the man who stood on the sidelines with socks, which had pigs dressed in police uniforms, who came out and made a public statement praising Fidel Castro. This is who the Rotten Reverend is now sided with. Once again, the Rotten Reverend. You know, the Rotten Reverend, she makes the wrong call every time, doesn't she? It's like George Clooney was right. She is a horrible, horrible politician. And this is a no-brainer. And this should be a no-brainer. This proves that this woman is completely, she may be the most out-of-touch person, if she is a person, on this planet. I never really believed in the reptilian thing before, but now, I don't know. I like to see her tongue. If it's got a fork in it, I'll be convinced. And here is the final. The final, what I told you was going to settle this whole NFL thing. Here it is. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Boom. I don't have a crystal ball. I just know how these things work. Anheuser-Busch. You know, the people who make Budweiser, the most popular beer in the country that everyone relates to and relates associated with the NFL. Anheuser-Busch, the NFL's largest advertiser, has placed a call to Mr. Goodell, head of the NFL, over their anthem and military protest. Let me tell you how that meeting's going to go.